Going live on a Sunday. Here I am, going live on a Sunday. I'm Dane, and my guitar company is called ZIMM'S Guitars. I have a store. It's mostly used stuff. I was in the store until about 3 o'clock today. And it was a kind of a fun day at the store today. But I am back home now. And I thought it'd be fun to come on here and see if I can get some guys to come on here with me and watch me. I see I got one person on with me so far, and we are a minute into this. So, hey man, how you doing? Got two people on. I want you two guys to give me a question and tell me who's on with me. 3 of you guys are on right now. Alex, how are you doing? Daryl, how you doing? So today, I am playing through my 2012 Gibson. Let me take the tuner off there. This is my Les Paul Deluxe Gold Top. And so you can see it's got those little mini humbuckers in it. Wow, in the middle of making a summer guitar practice routine. That is a great idea. I set up my store, and I didn't practice very much today, but usually I'll go on YouTube and I'll type in backing tracks in like A minor, different things like that, and I'll play blues, lead guitar, and I'll try to play along with some of these backing tracks. And mostly I stick to A minor, but once in a while I'll do some C minor stuff or some E major stuff, but I stick to that. You know, that A minor pentatonic. So you got 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4. This thing's a little out of tune. I'll just keep tuning it. Daryl says, can you hear the difference between mini humbuckers and traditional sized ones? And me personally, I'm going to say no. Me personally, I haven't heard the difference. But back, they started making these things, I believe in late 60s, maybe 69. They started making the Deluxe where they put the mini humbuckers in there. And the route is the exact same size for like a soap bar P90. So you could take these mini humbuckers out and put P90s right in its place, and they will fit right in there. But I have a friend, and I've seen a lot of guitars where the guys will reroute these and put regular humbuckers in there. So I think rumor is that humbuckers give you just a little bit more output, a little bit more oomph to the guitar. Albert, how are you doing, man? I will call you later. I got a couple more items at the store that you might be interested in. And believe it or not, I got a Steve Vai. I got an Ibanez Gem, and it's the white one. It's with the Tree of Life inlays. It's got this scallop from 20, 21, 22, or 21, 22, 23, and 24 fret. Has been scalloped. So hello from San Antonio, Texas. So I do have I just got a Gem. Now I've had a couple of the Gem Juniors, and they were just sort of, they were okay sort of guitars. But I finally got my hands on a real Gem. And so I'm super stoked about that. I was going to bring it, but I will. I'll show you guys. Maybe on Friday when I do my live stream on Friday, I will show you that gem, because that gem, it's down at my store, and it actually has a Steve Vai autograph in Sharpie right at the bottom. And yeah, this is a gorgeous guitar. If you look at as far as chips and scratches and stuff, it's got one little right there. It's got a little scratch in it, a little chip. But other than that, this thing's real minty. And if you look on Reverb, they're starting at about $1,600. And I've had this thing a month or so, and I brought it back to my house. And so it's not at the store. I have it here at my house. And yeah, I don't know what to do with it. Usually sort of high-end guitars, I call my store the $300 guitar store. And so items like this that I would like to get maybe $1,600 out of this thing, they don't usually sell out of my store. So so I have it here at my house. And if anybody asks me, hey, do you got a Les Paul, I will definitely show them. But some of my cool guitars, I leave in cases, and I leave them behind the counter, or I leave them in the case back in the back room or something. And I don't usually hang them on the wall and let every kid in town play them. I kind of try to keep them nice for you guys, so when you see it, they're not all covered with fingerprints and everything like that. But yeah, this is my 2012 Les Paul Deluxe Gold Top. And you can see it's got the Deluxe on there. And it's a fun little guitar. As far as weight, I'm gonna guess that it's about in the maybe the maybe in about the 8.5 pound. My camera, guys can't see this here. Here we go. I'll go like this, so you guys can kind of see it. I don't play this thing very often. Again, I've only had it maybe about a month or so. I usually play those Kramers that I have at the store. The super strat kind of stuff is what I really am into. Alex is saying, have you ever had a Fender Mustang come through your shop? Yeah, I did a video on a 1965 Fender Mustang, and I've had a couple Mustangs come through. Nothing too rare, or, the Fender Mustang, the 65 that came through the store that I did a video on, that was a customer showcase video. So I didn't own that one. But, I've had some of the regular Squire Mustangs come through. And, once in a while I'll get a Jazzmaster or a Jag-Stang. I had one of those surf green, the Kurt Cobain Jag-Stang. Jeremy says, it's a perfect time for this stream in the UK. What time is it out here in Arizona? I am going to say it's like 3:30-ish, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a nice Sunday afternoon. And we kind of have some overcast skies It's not brutally hot yet. A lot of times this time of year, it's already going to hit 100 degrees, be in the triple digits. But today it's slightly overcast and there's a lot of breeze flowing. And this morning at the store, I didn't even have to turn my AC on. I opened the front door, I opened the back door. And so the last couple of days, I've been able to save a few bucks by not turning my air conditioner on. Ahoy! Jag stains are great. You have a red one. How cool. The Kurt Cobain Jag stain has that, it's got a Duncan Super Distortion in the bridge. So those are kind of cool. Do I have the original case for this guitar? Yes, I do. I have a Fender case. I have a Gibson case. It's the original one. So something cool at the store happened today. I sold, so I have a neighbor, okay? And he's a big YouTuber, and I know I talk about him all the time. And hopefully he's not going to care that I mention him once in a while. But Philip McKnight, once in a while, he'll bring me a consignment item. And he brought in, about a week or two ago, he brought in his little brand new JCM 800, the 20-watt version that he bought just at NAMM this year. He did the video on it where he like A-B'd the his JCM 800 20-watt and then his Silver Jubilee. And you could see that the Philip McKnight did the video on both of those amps. And he let me sell his JCM 800. So that was in the store for about a week or two, and it's gone already. I seen Henning, HP 42 did a review on that amp, and he had great things to say about it. And so I want to thank Mr. McKnight for bringing me some consignment pieces every once in a while. His JCM 800 is gone. And if you watch his video, he's talking about, hey, which one do you guys think I should keep? Should I keep the Silver Jubilee? Should I keep the, the JCM 800? They're cool little amps because it's the same circuit as a 100-watt or a 50-watt JCM 800. And but it's only 20 watts, and you can even switch it down to 5 watts. So it's got like a high-low switch on it. And that is really cool because you can put it on a Marshall 412 cabinet. It sounds great. You can turn that up. You can get that JCM 800 tone at a quiet volume. So when you're out at the clubs or you're out at playing a small bar, you can have that tone without killing everybody in the bar. So, Alex, he designed them a pretty neat concept. That's right. We're talking about your Jag stain. It's too bad that we lost Kurt Cobain. I'm wondering if he was still alive, would he have turned into the Elvis type of person where he got all big and fat and everything, or would he continue to make great music? It's hard to tell, right? What is the color of the gem that I got? I got a white gem. So I'll show you guys. I'll do a live stream on Friday, and I'll show you guys my gem. But it does have Steve Vai's autograph in a Sharpie down at the bottom of it right here. And it's half wore out because somebody was playing it and their forearm is on that. So, but it is signed by Steve Vai. But you know me, man, I'm one of those guys where signatures don't make that big of a deal to me. If somebody brings me a guitar and says, oh my God, it's got Steve Vai's autograph on it, I mean, that's kind of cool. But if it wasn't me having Steve Vai autograph it, so I have that memory, it doesn't mean anything to me. So that's kind of my thoughts on autographs. I could take them or leave it. I got a Martin a month or so back, and the whole top of the Martin, it was a DM, and the whole top of the guitar was covered in autographs. So somebody was out on the road, somebody met a ton of people, but it did have B.B. King across here, and believe it or not, it had Miranda Lambert right under the bridge, but this was a Martin, and I've already sold that. But NAFTA is the best for taking that kind of stuff away. I just bought another can of NAFTA yesterday. I went to Home Depot. And yeah, you're right. If you pull stickers off, it's really work. It's basically just lighter fluid, isn't it? But it works really good for taking residue from stickers off. And it doesn't hurt your, plastic. And so I use that stuff a lot. But you know what? It lasts a long time too. I got a can probably over 2 years ago, and it just ran out. So it took me 2 years to get through a can of the NAFTA. Yeah, Miranda, she's hot, huh? Miranda Lambert. One of the autographs that was on that Martin that I had, of course, there was B.B. King, there was Miranda Lambert, but I mean, it was completely covered, and it was all country guys, and I don't know country guys, but one of them, it had a date of 2002 on it, so that was maybe a long time ago, Miranda Lambert. Yeah, my t-shirt. So, guys, this is just your basic DS1 t-shirt. These are available at all the guitar centers. They're made very cheap. They come unraveled. But I actually got this at the Hollywood Guitar Center on Sunset when I was out there. When was I out there? It was last August, I think. I actually got to play a gig at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And so I went through the Guitar Center. And it's a nice store. They've remodeled it. I like the Sam Ash across the street. So if you're on Sunset and you're hitting that Guitar Center, make sure that you go across the street and hit the Sam Ash. All right. What is that blue guitar behind you? Let me grab that thing. Let me set this down. Oh, this is kind of cool because this has one of those input jacks where you got to push this little red switch down to pull it out. So you push that in. Oh, come on. I can do it. There we go. Let me grab this blue guitar and show you what this thing is. It's a Charvel. Yeah, it's a Charvel. How pretty is that, right? I'll show you the headstock. So again, one of those 80s hair metal shredder kind of things, right? And it's all out of tune. It's been here at my house for a long time. I've probably owned this guitar for probably 2 years now. And it is a refin. It's been refinished. And the guy that paints for me, he did a really good job on this one. It is a cool looking Charvel. Some guys call it Charvel. Hey man, Charvel. No, I call it Charvel. So I don't know, am I mispronouncing that? Charvel or Charvel? I think it's a Charvel. So yeah, this is locked. The nut is locked down, and I don't have the wrench with me now. I have a little Allen wrench here, but it's the wrong size. So I can't play this for you because she's all out of tune. What is the Marshall head behind you? That is one of those MOSFET. Remember the MOSFET? So it's a solid state MOSFET circuit. And it's got a little crunch to it. It also has got a lot of hiss and, kind of a lot of static that's involved with it. Now, there are those, a friend of mine that knows his electronic stuff real good. There's those little parts in there that are like these little rectangular little pieces that have like 3 prongs coming out of each side. And he said if we replace some of those, it'll help it quiet down a little bit. So I have had some work done to it. For a solid state amp, usually there's nothing you can do to that. But again, I have, you run into a lot of friends when you have a store. All these guys are interested in all different aspects of what's going on with equipment and everything. And so you'll start to meet guys that are good with rebuilding or, working on amplifiers. I have a real good friend, Nathan. I was just going to talk to you. I was just going to talk about you, Nathan. I have a real good friend, Nathan. He just got on Nathan's Guitars. Check out his YouTube video because he's got his own channel. But Nathan is great at taking apart and putting back together, or more or less fixing old Fender amplifiers. And so I have a couple of videos that Nathan participated, and he works on old Fender amps. He can bias them, he can change the tubes, and he can do all kinds of great work to the Fender amps. And if you look on my channel, there's a couple of videos that he's done for me, and Nathan's probably been in a dozen of my videos. So he's my Mark Agnesi. You know what I'm saying? There's the stores that need somebody that can play really good, because I don't play very good, and I can strum a couple of chords here and there, but Nathan is really good at playing guitar. And he knows old Chet Atkins stuff, and he's real good at the finger picking stuff and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check out all of Nathan's stuff. And then also, I have this friend named Carlos, and he is good at working on, believe it or not, solid state amps. So yeah, so you end up meeting a lot of people that do all kinds of. This thing I might be able to tune this to a whole step down. It looks like it's close to being in D tuning, the Motley Crue tuning. So that means your D string is at a C. Let me go see if I can get it to a C. Oh, it's almost there. Mountain Man Music. How are you doing, man? Thanks for hanging out. And he just subscribed to Nathan's channel. Nathan, I'm going to get you some subscribers, bro. Because Nathan does good stuff. And he really knows his shit, so to speak. So go on Nathan's Guitars. Yeah, you're getting them, man. You're getting subscribers, Nathan. Okay. Oh, this thing might actually tune. It's like a whole full step down. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Happy Sunday. Last Sunday was Mother's Day, and it was the first time I decided to try to do a live stream out of my house. And even though I've had this little room back here, that I've had some of my old amps and some of the extra stuff that doesn't fit in the store, and some of the stuff that I really just don't want to sell. I hide stuff here at my house. Oh, okay. Here it is. So it's all the way down, full step down, It's in D. And you can't have a guitar tuned to D and not try to do some of this. Yeah, Nathan's saying, by the way, sweet bandmaster. Big story, man. I've told you guys a couple of times. I have a huge story about my old Fender Bandmaster 1967. I got a Fender cab down here that sets on. But again, I don't want to go into the story again, but I got that amplifier in 1977. It was like my 14th birthday or something like that. And I got it for Christmas. 1977. I'm pretty sure that was the year. I remember my little brother got a moped and that he used to cruise all around town, but I ended up getting a Fender amp, and I've sold that thing twice and I keep getting it back. So I'm like, okay, it keeps coming back. I'm just going to keep this thing. This thing's still kind of out of tune and I don't play very good, but yeah, man, it's tons of fun though. The band that I'm in, I am the bass player. But I've played guitar in little punk bands and kind of stuff where you can just, you know, you play punk rock stuff. So I am somewhat versed in playing rhythm guitar. I've had a couple of bands where once in a while I'll end up being the rhythm guitar player. But most of the time, I play bass. So I'm kind of like Norm from Norman's Rare Guitars. He's a bass player. He doesn't play guitar very good. And he's got a little guitar shop. Not that I'm anywhere near that caliber, right? Or that successful. I've had a store for 3 years now. It's in Mesa, Arizona. Great place to have a little shop. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm semi-retired, and I'm like, you know what? I got a great deal on my lease. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to try to see if I can make a living by flipping guitars and amps. And so far, it's been tons of fun. I'm getting cool stuff in my collection, and I'm selling off the stuff that I don't really, once in a while I'll get a guitar and I'm like, oh my God, I have to try to just keep this one for a while. But I'm at the luxury, if I come across the guitar that's super cool, like this Charvel, I can keep this thing for a couple of years. It's not going down in value. I can play this thing for 5 or 10 years and it's not going to drop down in value. So I'm never really in any kind of a rush to have to sell something. Yeah, the boomerang effect, where you sell an item to a friend of yours. 10 years later, you buy that item back. 10 years after that, you sell it to somebody else. Then 5 years after that, if you live that long, they bring stuff back to you. So yeah, it's the boomerang. I thought maybe you were talking, when I saw boomerang, I thought you were talking about the new Steel Panther echo delay pedal that's out. Guitar Hack, how are you doing? Thanks for popping in on me, man. I watched some of your stream today for a while. And now, let me ask you a question while you're on here. You had 3 gigs in a row. So was that Friday, Saturday, and then today? Or was it Thursday, Friday, Saturday? or did you have to do 2 shows in the same day, or how'd your weekend go? And also, Guitar Hack, I did happen to notice that you just had your camera and you were live streaming while you guys were setting up your gear. It was kind of like hanging out at the bar with you guys. You're waiting to do a gig right now, so you're even out on a Sunday, man. That's hardcore. That is hardcore to be out playing on a Sunday. I hope they're going good for you. I did see that your song list. Real quickly, I played a lot of those songs. If I lived in your neighborhood, I could probably set in on bass with you, and we would jam, dude. I know it. How's your fingers feel? Are your tips of your fingers getting sore? Sometimes what happens to me is I get a little bit of arthritis right here in this thumb because I worked construction for 20 years, so I was always swinging a hammer. And, I've been able to retire about 4 years ago from swinging a hammer and being a tile layer. But from playing bass, I play with a pick. So I'm always bump, 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 and I really am, let me grab a bass for a second. I have a bass setting right here. All right, it's just a cheap bass. Very, very cheap bass. But, yeah. You know what? This is a Squier bass. Here's the thing about bass players compared to guitar players. This is a Squier bass. The neck is somewhat straight. I think I gave a kid $30 for this bass at my store, maybe about a year ago or 6 months ago or something. And I changed the strings on it. I tightened the truss rod. I kind of set the saddles. I tried to intonate it. And I took steel wool to the back of the neck. And I just, really, you can see that I really took a lot of steel wool and I just smoothed it out. The worst thing about this cheap bass is the tuners. So if you've got a song that's down in drop D or something, it takes you a minute to kind of dial that in. But getting back to my sore finger thing, my sore thumb right here, this joint right here, when you're sitting there playing bass with a pick, this is the kind of bass player I am. I've always tried to be very rhythmic about my bass playing because you are part of the rhythm section. And after a while, it starts to work a little arthritis in this thumb joint right here. But yeah, that's this is the type of bass player I am. And it'll start to get sore. And there's been times where I've had 3 gigs in a weekend, and by the Sunday afternoon gig, I've let the bass down and I start doing it this way. So I have to start playing with my fingers because my thumb gets sore. But what I was saying is, I can take a cheap bass that has hardly, it's a $50 bass. The strings cost more than the whole bass does if you put a brand new set of strings on here. And I can be 100% content playing a cheap Squier bass because I'm just, I can play this thing and be happy with it. And so, but guitar players, you put a guitar player like Guitar Hack on a $50 Squire, and he's not having the best day. Let's just say that. So that's a big difference between guitar players and bass players. Guitar players, you need a Telly to do some country stuff. You need a Strat to do some bluesy Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff. You need a Gibson to play your all the cool, like the Ted Nugent stuff that's on your list, and or Sweet Child of Mine or some of that kind of stuff. So you need a variety of guitars. As a bass player, you need one guitar. You need one bass guitar. That's the thing with bass players. So I probably have 20 to maybe 25 used bass guitars in my store. And very rarely, if I sell one every week or two, that's kind of a lot of sales, because your average bass player only needs one bass guitar. And if you break a string as a bass player, you're doing something wrong, because usually you really got to be aggressive to break one of these strings. And I even play the 45 through 90 scale, so I even play the thin bass strings. Nice guy Eddie, how you doing, man? You're a bass player too. Guitar hack, man. Go get ready for your gig and have a great show. Mountain Man music. I have the same issue with my thumbs. Menthol patches, and they seem to help some. You know what? My singer is like, dude, try this stuff. And he had some hemp. So marijuana lotion, and he's like, rub this on your thumb. But then holding that pick, you don't want anything to be on your thumb, any type of a lotion, anywhere near where this pick's going to slide around. So once in a while, like I would try to use his hemp lotion, and he goes, this stuff helps, man. It's for arthritis. But it gets all slippery all over the place. And then I got my thumb, and it's on my pick, and I'm sliding all over the place. And I kind of have the same problem, believe it or not, with hairspray. So you'll get girls in the bar, and they're like, oh, Dane, let me fix your hair, and let's poof it up a little and spray some hairspray in it. But I'm constantly going like this. This is just a habit. I'm constantly getting it out of my face. And then I get that hairspray on my fingers, and I can't play for shit. I have to always keep my hands, every time I play a gig, I wind up all the chords, and I set everything up. I hook everything up. And then before I start playing, I go wash my hands off, because I can't play with dirt on my hands. Has the guitar helped your bass or vice versa? I'm going to say, yeah, definitely helps. It's good to know how to play. If you're a guitar player, it's good to know how to play bass. It's good to know how to play both of them. Again, it helps you to learn, but being a bass player, it helps you to learn every note, on your fretboard. It's kind of an easier way to learn all the notes on your fretboard. And then once you get up to a guitar where you have your high B and high E string, then you've got to work on those. But it helps you learn all those. So I kind of recommend being a bass player. And the reason I became a bass player, because when I was like 14 years old, I had a guitar. I got this amp. My parents got it for me on Christmas. And I had an old, I wish I still had it, but I had an old Ovation, hollow body Ovation. It kind of looked like a ES335 type of a guitar, but it was made by Ovation. And it had the binding all around it and everything. And my parents bought me that guitar too, and I played that thing forever. And I don't know what the name of that guitar was, but it was an Ovation. But I met these kids that already had a little band together, and they're like, Dane, we need a bass player. And I was so into just wanting to be in a band that I'm like, dude, I'll be your bass player. So that's kind of how that happened. And so I became a bass player. And then when I moved out here to Arizona in like 1979 or 1980 or somewhere around that time, I met guitar players that could just, they were pulling off Eddie Van Halen riffs and stuff. And I'm like, bro, let me be your bass player. So that's pretty much how I became a bass player, is because I really wanted to be in a band. And there was always a need to have a bass player. One thing that kind of messed with me a little bit in the 80s was when Flea came out and they were doing all this slap technique. I never really got good at the slap technique. And so, you know, that kind of hurt a little bit. Mountain Man music. My employees wouldn't agree. Nice guy, Eddie. My old band, I sang, and you were the bass player. You had a Jackson custom shop with a Kahler trem. I saw him break a string a few times. Oh, your bass player in your old band had a Jackson with a Kahler trem on a bass. I know, I seen one of those before. And he would break a string. No, you know what? When I was a kid, and well, or even in my 20s, I would break a string because, man, when you're on stage, you're just all so wound up and strings would break. But I literally haven't broken a string in, 25 or 30 years or something like that. That's exactly right. Bass players are never out of work. And I even upped my game by having my own PA system. So I've got a really nice Behringer board. I got a couple nice power amps. I got the BB Sonic Maximizer. It's all in a rack on wheels. I got the PV 18-inch subs. I got the PV 215 towers with the horn. I got a couple monitors. They all slide in my pickup truck. I got a camper shell on my pickup truck, and I can slide everything in there real easy. And so if you're a bass player and you own a PA system and you can set that thing up and run sound from the side of the stage, and you those Behringer mixers, they have that built-in feedback suppression and everything. So my PA always sounded great. I never had any feedback issues going on. Peace sells, but who's buying? I don't know how that song goes. But I do have a good Megadeth story. I saw the Peace Sells tour, and I'm going to say the year was 83 or 84, 85 or something like that. And I saw him at the Celebrity Theater. And this was with their old drummer. I don't remember his name, but you remember their first drummer. And I do remember Dave Mustaine, one of the songs ended, and they ended a song, and I guess the drummer didn't end the song right, and Dave Mustaine turned around and just flipped off the drummer. And so they were kind of going through, I could see a little difficulties with between Dave and his drummer at that gig. And then the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix, they were trying very hard to keep the audience in control. And they were not going to let any mosh pits start or anything like that. And just crazy guys going around headbanging and stuff. But so I'm standing there watching the show, and then all of a sudden, two security guards, they grab me, they tackle me to the floor, they pin me to the ground, and I'm like, what did I do? And they're like, you were throwing stuff at the band. I'm like, you guys got the wrong guy. I didn't throw nothing at the band. So I pretty much got my ass kicked by security, and I was innocent. But yeah. And then I went and saw Megadeth in Tucson, and And come on, man, what was the name of the band that opened up? Oh, it was Armored Saint opened up the show. So that was a real fun show down there. And I got my backstage pass for that, but there was no backstage area. You were just outside. So it was kind of fun. I love Megadeth. Peace sells, but who's buying? Nice guy Eddie says, I knew a kid that was a horrible bass player, but he had the whole band worth of gear and a PA, and he always had a gig. That's exactly right, man. That's kind of how David Lee Roth got into Van Halen. He owned the PA system. And then he just worked on his art. And if you're in, and you know what, though, the thing is nowadays, you can be in 2, 3, 4 different bands. As long as you work on your scheduling and everybody's cool with your schedule, you can be in a bunch of bands, and you could literally go out and have rehearsals or gigs or whatever every night of the week, every day of your life. You can go practice and rehearse. And so nowadays with YouTube, you sit behind YouTube and you log into, hey, I want, Peace Sells bass lesson. And there'll be 20 people showing you how to play P-cells on bass. But back in the 80s, man, there was nobody to teach you this stuff. And so you literally had to listen to the CD or the record or the cassette. And you would go to rehearsals and your guitar player would be like, dude, here's the riff. And so if you had a nice enough guitar player to walk you through this stuff, and so I learned tons of the songs that I know, I learned at band rehearsal. Nowadays, though, people want you to learn the songs before you go to rehearsal. So it's different. Things are different nowadays. But we used to be able to hang around with our friends and all the guys in the band, and we would learn songs while we were there. And but nowadays, man, you can't do that. If you go audition for a band right nowadays, you get their song list. You learn that material before you even show up, or you're just wasting their time. So it's very important, man. Learn those songs before you even show up. Yeah, so times have changed, but it's still tons of fun having bands together. But I was going to say, again, back in the 80s or something, if you were in a band and you were like, hey, man, I'm going to go jam with Jimmy and these other guys from this other band, the guys in your band would be pissed at you. And they'd be like, it was almost like you were cheating on your girlfriend if you would go over and jam with the other guys in the storage unit next door or something. They'd get mad at you. But nowadays, like, guys like George Lynch and people like that, they got 4 or 5 different bands going all at the same time, and you don't even know how many bands he's in. So times have changed, and you can be in a variety of bands. Just let everybody know, be upfront. Hey, man, I'm going to be in a whole bunch of different bands, so, call me when you need me, and I'll know all the songs, so don't worry, because I'm going to practice on my own time. Those are kind of 2 of the things that have sort of changed. It really seriously was, though, back in the day. If you decided to go be in another band or join another band, the guys in your band were pissed. You were literally cheating on them, just like if you started dating another girl and you're cheating on another girl, you were cheating on your band by going off and playing in other bands. And there's a lot of drama and a lot of politics involved in the whole, hey, man, I'm going to go jam with somebody else today. So, guys would get pissed off at you. Hey, I got 17 guys on here. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I remember seeing Brad Gillis playing in different bands back in the 80s. Well, he had Night Ranger was his band, but the Ozzy album that he did, the live Ozzy album that he did after Randy Rhoads died, he did a phenomenal job on that record. And his version of Paranoid was really good. Brad put his own, listen to the Paranoid song that Brad Gillis played, and he put his own twist on that Paranoid riff. And Speak of the Devil, that's right. Brad Gillis did his own sort of version of Paranoid, and it's badass. He did a great version of that song. So I saw Ozzy, when was it? It was 1980, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, 1980. Randy Rhoads was in the band. What's his name? The bass player dude from Quiet Riot was on bass. Tell me what his name was. Rudy Sarzo. And they had a great keyboard player back then too. And they had the big chapel where the keyboard player was up in one of the windows. You remember that? And there was all these steps going up. Yeah, that was a great show. But in 1980, or it might have been 81, but I heard Ozzy singing Crazy Train. And here's what's funny about this. And there's that one line, right, Rudy Sarzo? There's that one line, I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. And you'd hear Ozzy sing that one line and his voice would kind of crack a little and break up a little bit. And I was going, oh no, man, Ozzy's losing it. And this was in like 1980. I'm like, he's losing his voice. He's not going to be able to sing. Poor Ozzy, his days are numbered. And here it is 39 years later. And, it didn't slow him down. Although Ozzy has been in the hospital and we might not ever see Ozzy play again. But I was honestly worried about Ozzy in 1980. I was worried about Ozzy. And look at all the great stuff Ozzy's done since then. Just amazing. He loves, you know why Ozzy kicks butt the way he does? Is because he loves doing that. "14 guys on with me, man. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Give me some questions. Somebody give me a question about something. Nice guy Eddie says he saw Ministry with Sepultura. Some of the Sepultura guys live down here in Phoenix because I've seen some of those dudes out and around at the bar, although I've never seen them play. I saw Deep Purple the other year and they were great, and they had a keyboard solo and it was really good. Well, John Lord was their keyboard player for a long time, right? And John Lord did a lot of, talking about guys, okay, some of those guys from Whitesnake, Uriah Heep, Sabbath, Ozzy's band, they all kind of shared, once you got into a scene and you were part of the good players up in England, you could go from, like John Lord. He did great Whitesnake albums. He did great Deep Purple albums. And those guys, Ronnie James Dio, those guys would all sort of kind of go from one band to the other. And so that was really neat. Because you always see so many musicians and they do really well in one band. And the supergroup thing was fun for me. I even really enjoy Asia. But the supergroup thing was fun for me. I always like the idea of a supergroup where you put together a bunch of guys. I like the circle. I like what Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar are doing with that. I love the idea of guys that used to be in one band. Now they're in this other band, and those guys are really cool. So I always thought it was really cool how Dio could go from Black Sabbath to his solo album and then to Rainbow. And then John Lord would go from Whitesnake to, and then Lee Kirshneck would go from Uriah Heep to Ozzy's band, and all those cool British dudes, man. That was the shit back then. Nice Guy Eddie says, have you had any famous people in my store? Let me think for a second. Well, probably the biggest name that I have had in my store would be Brian Blush. Now, Brian Blush was from the Refreshments. And so if you watch the King of the Hill cartoon, you know the guitar riff at the end. That was Brian Blush. And so Brian's been in my store, and he bought a wah-wah pedal from me. And so he's around playing gigs here in the Phoenix area. And the Refreshments were always a Arizona band, a Phoenix band. They were part of the Tempe sound. So it was kind of a cool thing for us in the late 80s, before the grunge thing took over. We had what they called the Tempe sound. And there was one studio down in Tempe where the Gin Blossoms recorded. And of course they had Hey Jealousy and all the great songs that the Gin Blossoms did. Well, this little studio down in Tempe there started to get tons of people wanting to go in there and record because of what the Gin Blossoms did. And so I think the Refreshments were part of that scene. And there were bands like a Dead Hot Workshop that was part of that scene. And so it was kind of cool that Tempe, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix and right next door to Mesa and everything, we had a little scene that was getting worldwide attention there in the late 80s and the early 90s. And it was thanks to the Gin Blossoms and their success. I have another great friend that comes into the store, and his name is Chris Hyatt. And he is a Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute band. And he does a great Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute. And he lived in Florida, and so anybody in Florida might know about Chris Hyatt. But he lives here in town, and I can't say enough good things about Chris Hyatt. The dude just shreds. The Stevie Ray Vaughan, the blues stuff, he's very well versed. And he makes his living as a guitar player. So in this day and age, to make your living playing guitar, man, that's a tough gig. Gerald says, doesn't today's country sound like rock music from the 80s? It does. I have to agree with you on that. Okay, so who's the most famous person that you have ever played with? Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit when I answer this question because about 6 weeks ago, my band opened up for Rough Riot. Now, this is Paul Shortino and the drummer. I don't know his name, but it was some of the guys from Rough Cut, and they were huge. And then it was also Sean McNabb that did the Quiet Riot album, and Carlos Cavazo, that of course is a huge Quiet Riot guitar player, right? World famous guy. And Paul Shortino and Carlos Cavazo were part of Ronnie James Dio's We're Stars. Remember that song? It was like a benefit song that they did in LA, and they got all the LA hair metal guys together back in the mid 80s when like Live Aid, and it was called Hearing Aid. And so these guys did We're Stars at the gig, and I was in an opening band, and we opened up for them. And they asked us about 2 or 3 weeks before the gig, hey, we're going to perform that We Are Stars song. And so if you guys want to sing background vocals, you can come up on stage and you can sing background vocals. So I got on stage and I made a video about it. So I am going to say the most famous person that I ever played with. And if you call singing background vocals, I was literally on stage with them. So I'm going to say Paul Shortino and Carlos Cavazo. And Sean McNabb has to be thrown into that mix because Sean McNabb is Rough Riot's bass player. Sean McNabb did the Quiet Riot 3 album that Paul Shortino sang lead on. And my singer is really good friends with Sean McNabb. And Sean McNabb has also been in Dawkins. He's been in the Lynch Mob. And so he's part of that LA scene that is out and playing out a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that question by saying Carlos Cavazo. I've opened for, I've kind of had a variety of bands that I've been able to open for because I've played in cover bands. I've played in like rock original bands, and I've also played in punk rock original bands. So back in the day, I opened up for Badfinger, which was the old English band that was on the Apple label. And so I've done everything from Badfinger to bands like Agent Orange and Dr. Chud and punk rock bands. So yeah, it's been tons of fun doing different things. Opening up for bands is pretty much all you can ask for. I opened up for Faster Pussycat just last year. And Hookers and Blow was on that show. And that's Dizzy, the keyboard player from Guns N' Roses. So I've opened up for that guy, and tons of fun when you can go out and open up for guys, man. That's as good as it gets. And sometimes you have to say to yourself, you tell the guys in your band, if you're opening up for somebody and you're at a good show and there's a lot of people there, I tell my guys in the band, or the girls, because I've been in girl bands too. I tell these guys, hey guys, take a second and smell the roses and take this all in, because it doesn't get any better than this. And if you're in front of 100 or 200 people, maybe 300 people. One time I played a casino gig, and my band was called Hollywood and Vine. And so I had this big Dee Schneider wig on, and I was playing bass, and we were doing like an 80s tribute kind of thing. And this was at the casino down in Tucson. And out on the main amphitheater outside was the EVA amphitheater. I forget what the amphitheater was called outside. But outside, Sammy Hagar and Gary Sharon was opening up for Sammy Hagar, believe it or not. And my band was inside the casino on the casino stage. Well, something that really cool happened was after Gary Sharon's band finished up their set outside, they came inside and they played like 5 songs on our equipment. And so I got to hang out with Gary Sharon, and it wasn't like backstage. It was more like on this ramp where you would move your gear up. And I was hanging out with Gary Sharon for a minute, and I'm like, Gary, just for fun, more than words is all. And he joined in with me, and we did about 3 seconds of More Than Words together. And so that was a big thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid to go and ask one of these rock stars to sing with me. Makes me look stupid, but I don't care. It was fun. It was a great memory for me. Are we going to talk about guitars again? What are your thoughts on coated guitar strings? My buddy loves them, but I'm not completely sold on them. So you're talking about like elixirs, different strings like that. I sell a lot of them. The guys come in my store and they live by those strings. I think basically what those strings are is just they're like soaked or they're dipped or they're sprayed with a rust repellent sort of kind of a thing, kind of like a waterproofing thing. So some of these old shoes that, shoes and stuff like that have been waterproofed, it's basically that same system where they've been soaked or sprayed in a waterproofing sort of thing so that they don't rust. And a lot of guys say great things about them. Once in a while, though, you can see if you take a camera that zooms really in on them really close, or you take a big old microscope, not a microscope, but a big old something so you can get really up, a magnifying glass. You get really up close on them and you kind of look at those strings after you've played them for a couple of months. And sometimes you can see that stuff kind of peeling off of there. So there's people that don't like them because of that. But most of the time, they're supposed to last longer, which is a good thing, but they cost more money. So if you just really hate changing your strings, it's probably a good thing. But there's a lot of guys that love the idea of having a fresh set of strings on your guitar. You put them on a day or two before your gig and you stretch them out, and then the next day you stretch them out a little bit more, and right before your gig you stretch them out a little bit more and you tune that up, and you have a great show knowing that you have a fresh set of strings on your guitar or even on your bass. So I think it kind of depends on if you love having that feeling of knowing you have fresh strings. Because I don't understand I don't really know if all the dirt and everything that's always on your fingers, that's got to be on those strings, and it's got to deaden the sound. So I kind of think just changing your strings more often would be a better idea than to buy something expensive like elixirs or something like that. But again, I know a lot of guys, and that's all they want to play are those elixirs. Nice guy, Eddie. Gary, the Extreme drummer. Paul Gary, the Extreme drummer, was co-owner of a music venue in Providence, Rhode Island. And I used to work as a stagehand with him, and he was a great guy. Hey, that's pretty cool, man. Extreme was a good band. I liked the Get the Funk Out song. And of course, Nuno Betancourt has turned into a phenomenal player. And he was great back then, but it's kind of neat how some of those 80s hair metal guys, like I'm calling Extreme a hair metal band, but some of those guys have been able to, once that scene dropped off and Extreme doesn't make music anymore and they don't have a record deal anymore or anything like that. But some of those guys have been able to make their careers keep going, and they're getting better. And Nuno Betancourt has been one of those guys that he carried on, and half the people in the world don't even know that he was in Extreme anymore. They just think he's one of those guys that go out with Satriani and Zach, and they're part of the G3 scene, or Yngwie, one of those shredder guys. There's some people that don't even know that Nuno Betancourt was part of Extreme anymore. And another guy, that Andy Timmons, is sort of the same way. He has moved on and making great music, and JHS has made an Andy Timmons pedal. But Andy Timmons was in Danger. So those are two of the guys that have sort of been able to keep a good career going, and that started with some of those 80s bands. He became Godsmack's and Seven Dust's manager. That's a good way to make a living. Okay. let me read this. Flight of the Wounded Bumblebee. That the legend, that Eugene's Trick Bag was my getaway song. Was there a song that made you want to play? Okay, so that's a, wow, that's a unique song that makes you want to play. No, there wasn't just one song that made me want to play. It was tons of stuff. Tons of stuff made me want to play. 13 guys, man. All 13 of you guys have lasted over an hour with me. Those two songs. Flight of the Wounded Bumblebee. Is that like a Steve Vai thing? Or no, that was in okay. Yeah, he's made a good living. He toured with Rihanna. I don't know these things. Nice guy Eddie, he's wondering what I want for my EVH Wolfgang. Well, I'll tell you, Eddie, it's a Wolfgang special made in Mexico. And the Stripe Series ones online are going for, like, I think I saw one for $11.99. So they're going for like maybe $1,200 to $1,500. But the one that I have, it's not that expensive because mine has been refinished. So mine started out, my EVH Stripe Series started out black. And I bought it used, and somebody was sanding on it. And I couldn't believe what I call it some kid, but I couldn't believe what some kid did to this Wolfgang. And he sanded on it. And so I had it refinished. And so I'm not really sure what the value of it is because it has been refinished, but it turned out awesome. Yeah, so here it is, man. This is my 2012 Gibson Les Paul Deluxe with the mini humbuckers in there. Fun guitar. Yeah, I've probably only had this thing for about a month. And it has one little chip. Where's it at? There it is, right there. But this thing is real minty. Other than having that one little chip. And it's a deluxe from 2012. And then I got guys that come into the store and they're like, oh man, 2012 is a horrible year for Gibson. And I'm like, ah, that's too bad. This one seems pretty nice. So there's those guys that can tell you everything about Gibson. They can tell you what were the good years, what were the bad years, which ones you want to stay away from. So yeah, it's all kinds of fun, huh? Nice guy Eddie, he says, I've played the Bullseye every day since I got it. So here's what happened. I did a live stream a month or so back. And Eddie was like, man, I really want a Zakk Wylde Bullseye. And I'm sitting in my store and I'm like, hey man, hand me my Zakk Wylde Bullseye on the wall. And so I played the Bullseye for a second. And nice guy Eddie's like, I want to buy that thing from you. So he sent me a check and I mailed it to him. Yeah. Eddie, I'm glad you like it. It's a nice piece, man. It's a really nice guitar. I think if a person is really honest about a Gibson, they have always been hit or miss. Yeah, it's true. Gibson's kind of a hit or miss. And you got to kind of look them over and, try to get a good one out of there. Some guitar companies have good ones. Some guitar companies have a couple that maybe should be B-stock. Yep, that is true. Well, hey, guys. Thank you guys so much for being on with me. We've done an hour and 15 minutes. Something fun to do on a Sunday afternoon. Eddie, thank you so much for being on with me. Eric, nice to see you guys. Greg. Hey, Sim, you get any talk boxes in your shop? I do have a talk box in my shop. And it's a really old Dean Markley version of a talk box. Really funny talk box story. So I'm watching a YouTube video of Frampton's up there and Billy Joel. And Billy Joel says, I'd like to bring Peter Frampton onto stage. And so Peter goes out there and Peter says, hey, like 40 years ago, you asked me what that thing is that goes in my mouth. And I'm like, Billy, that's a talk box. And Billy Joel's like, well, can I hook one up to my piano? And they had a laugh and everything. So 42 years later, they're doing a gig together. And this just happened recently. And Billy Joel says, ladies and gentlemen, to the stage, we've got Peter Frampton. So Peter comes out on stage. And he's carrying this big white thing that looks like a pyramid. And he says, Billy, 42 years ago, you asked me if I could get you a talk box that hooks up to your piano. And here's one. And he gave Billy, he goes, I'm sorry, I'm 42 years late. But anyhow, Billy Joel has a talk box that he can hook up to his piano. Eric is saying, hey, how's the Charvel rebuild going? And I sent you a text today. So look on your phone because I put a little text message to you that says your Charvel rebuild is done and it plays fabulous. So yeah, your guitar is done, man. And so on that note, guys, thanks again, man. I'm trying to get out of here. But I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys today. And Eric, I will see you soon. Come on into the store and pick up your Charvel. I put a different bridge on it. I put a different neck on it. And it plays nice. So see you guys. See you next time. Thanks for watching.